Okay, our project for today is a lighthouse set obviously by the sea. And you should each have gotten your own set of watercolors. Now this obviously is a different kind of watercolor than what we have used in the past. These are called tube watercolors. And so I will be showing you how to use these. But you also have got some new brushes in this set. So I thought that some of you might need to replace some of the brushes that we started with at the first part of our class sessions together, because they do get a little used with age and they can start kind of splaying out. So you've got for some fresh brushes for yourself here. So you should have your watercolors. I'm going to come over here and get with this type of watercolor, you're going to be using a paper plate. So I sent those over for you. And we are going to be obviously using a lot of blues since it's the sky and the sea. But we're also going to be using reds for our lighthouse, and then some greens and browns down here for our land. So I want to show you how to use this type of watercolor first. And I think we'll start with the lighthouse itself, and it will be red and white. So let's pick out, let's see, we've got a scarlet color here. Okay, so what you want to do is unscrew the top, and then you'll see at the top of the top there's a little pointed area, and that's where you push it down in to open up the tube. Okay, and then you squeeze a little bit out on your plate, not very much, because this goes a long ways. And you might say, well, what's the difference between acrylic paints and these watercolors? And basically, not a lot of difference, except that you'll be using more water on your brush, and the paint is more transparent with the watercolors than it is with acrylics. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a red little stripe here on the, and I'm assuming that before class that you have Sharpied all of your lines, and we want to use a permanent Sharpie, because if it's a a water-based Sharpie, it will run on you and not look particularly great. All right, so I'm going to get a small brush, because obviously we're working in a small area. And let's see if I can find a pointier brush that I like. Oh, let me get one. The one that they sent. Sometimes the brushes get a little ruined in the shipping, and especially the pointy brushes. And we used this one. Sorry for that interruption, but we've been working together for a long time, so we know each other now, right? Okay, so you want to put your paintbrush, and you want to have a piece of paper toweling, and so you want to put the water into your watercolor. Now, one of the things I do like about the tube watercolors is that you get much more brilliant colors than you do from the cake watercolors, which we've been using. And so you want to see how you are getting a very vibrant hue there. So as always, we're going to go around, follow our line. Go around this. So these watercolor paints really should flow off of your brush. But again, the nice thing is that they give you these really pretty colors. So now I'm going to come in with a larger brush and do that center. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to go back with my littler brush, and I'm going to give some of these little areas here some red accents. These will dry fairly quickly. And I'm going to put a red door down here. And then I think I will make these red. There we go, just to brighten it up a little bit. Okay, so we can also make this look more like a cylinder, right? By adding some different colors. So again, with it, with the watercolor, so what I got is in your set, you have a crimson red. Just put just a little dot of that. But with your watercolor sets, as I was saying, with your watercolor set, you can also blend different colors together. So we're going to make this a little darker. Everybody see that? And so we're going to do some shadowing in our red by mixing that crimson and making that look like we've got a little shadow going. And you want to blend it in. There we go. Okay, so let's open up. We have a Payne's Gray here. Forgot to poke my hole in the top. There we go. So you see it's a nice color of gray. And we're going to use that for a couple of different things. I'm going to paint our windows here. We'll paint that one. And then we're going to add a lot of water to it. And we're going to start doing a little bit of shading up here, right? Because this is, so we want it to be just a touch of shading. And down under here as well. Okay. So you can get a different tone just by adding more water to the paint. All right, so let's put a little bit of white with this Payne's gray. We're going to do a little bit of shading down this side. So I'm going to put just a little pop of color, of white color right there. And we're going to mix it until we get a lighter gray. Add a little more color to that. I want to add just a little more because I want this to be nice and light. And that's not, so I'm going to add more. Yeah, that's better. All right, so we're got that part. Now don't go down over the red because it'll smear into the red. So we want to add a little more white to it. So we have like a nice light gray with some water to it. And if you, well, this is good. And then we're going to shade down over here. Sorry, my computer that was sitting right next to me suddenly sprang to life with song. So we're going to add a little more water. And then we're going to continue this shading. All down the side. Again, make sure that you don't paint over your red down here because it'll pull the red. And as you are getting closer to this outside edge, you can add just a little more black to it. Because that would be the darker shading, right? All right, and then if you want to spread this out a little bit more so it's a little better blended and not just a straight line, you can take your bigger brush and kind of work with that so that the brush marks aren't so noticeable. So see how we're going from white, a little darker, a little darker, a little darker. And we could do that here too. Go. And if we want to add a little darker in the red area, we can now do that. I'm just putting some of that Payne's gray over it. All right, so now let's make sure our paintbrushes are really nicely cleaned out because we're going to do kind of a yellow green for the light. So we're just going to put just a little pop of that. I'm having fun doing this. I haven't used watercolors in tubes for a while. I forgot how much I liked it. All right. So the lighthouse is going to be signaling that it's good for these boats to be out here. There you go. All right, so now we need to put the top of it. Let's do, let's see, what color do we want to do? Maybe a burnt sienna. Do you see where the burnt sienna is? And we're going to use this for the roof. Again, we just need just a little bit of it because we're not using much of it right now. We don't want it to go to waste. And then I'm going to add, mix together just a little bit of that. Add some shadows over here. Okay, pretty. I like how this is turning out. Okay, I'm going to let that dry for a little bit. And if you need to get up and get some more water, you can do that. So if you want to put the video on pause, you can do that, and we'll get started on the sea. Okay, for the sea, let's start off with the cerulean blue. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Okay, I'm going to have to pop it open. Put it on your plate. And sometimes, as what just happened right here, it pops out a little bit and gets on your fingers. So make sure you've got that off. And then I also put out some cobalt blue. We don't want to use just one color of blue because if you look at the sea, it's a variety of shades. Okay, so the sea is going to be darker than our sky. And so we're going to put water over here. And I'm mixing these together because we really don't want it to be, but I'm leaving some that's not mixed. If you'll see here, I've got some that's just the cobalt blue, and then I've got some that's a mix, and then I'm leaving some over here. And if you want to see what it's going to look like on your paper, you can try it out on another piece of paper, or you can just paint it on your plate. And we're going to use our big brush because this is basically our base coat. And then we'll add some things. So be real careful getting in. We can go back with our small brush when we're done with that. We won't get too close to the boats. We'll come back with our small brush. So you want to paint all the way out to your edges. We'll miss our little boat here. Okay, and now I'm going to take my slightly smaller brush and go back over that. Get up close in those little spots. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and it looks like I need a little more cobalt blue. And I still have some of my cerulean blue, so I'm good to go with that. Mix them together and repeat the process. We've got this other boat back here that we want to bypass as well. We'll get our small brush and get those tricky parts. Okay, now we want to start having this idea of waves, right? And we want to see some of the wave caps. And so we want our those lines to be going horizontally. Okay, so what we're going to do is get the cobalt blue and start giving this some depth, and you'll have stronger color with less water. And so we're going to start filling it in with just going horizontally on with our brush strokes. See how we're giving that some depth. So we'll start up here where it's dark by the horizon line. And I'm not really doing strokes with my brush. You'll see I'm sort of wiggling it back and forth to get a texture. And it's kind of hit or miss. Like the waves are rolling in. Then if you want some areas that are darker, you just go back and pick up some more of that blue. Move that up a bit. And then kind of stand back and see how you like it. Then you can go back and make even, you want to go for some contrast in your color. And I think up here by the horizon line, I want some more, even darker blue, right as it's going over. It starts giving it some depth, right? Like it's going further and further away from you. And I'm going to take my smaller brush up here behind, up right next to the lighthouse, and kind of feather that out too. And darker blue up here. I'm going to add some around the boat as well. Okay, now for contrast, again, make sure you've got your brushes really cleaned out. I'm going to go over this with some white. And up near the shoreline, I'm going to add some white. Because that's getting closer to us, right? And then it breaks on the rocks and makes it, catches the light a little bit. And then I'm going to get some more white and not put as much water in it, so it will be an even brighter white. And take my small brush And just a little bit of water. And then I'm going to do some wiggly lines like waves breaking. As they get closer to the shore. Okay, so you can play around with that. Okay, we'll go back and get our boat. Okay, let's take our little brush. We're going to just leave the sails white. And we're going to get our little brush and go back. If you've got some of that Payne's gray that is still wet, we'll paint that little line there. And it looks like my burnt sienna is dried up, so I'll put just a little bit more for the boat itself. A little bit of water. There you go. And then I'm going to put some more of the gray, and I'm going to do little lines going horizontally on the boat. Okay. All right, so then we're going to go for some green, and we're going to use this green called Hooker's Green. Okay, so I've got the Hooker's Green, and then I think for contrast we will also use Sap Green. So I'll put a little bit there. Oops, silly me, I forgot brand new paint set. Just love looking at all these colors. All right, so we'll start out with the, what did I say, sap green? Yes. Again, kind of giving it a base coat. Place to start, use your big brush. And that looks pretty against that blue. Sorry, I just noticed that I have this down too low for you to see. Again, does not have to be a perfect same color all the way around, because it will change up in nature, so we'll make it change up in our painting. Didn't put quite enough of the sap green out, so I'll try that again. This is a nice color green. I added a little bit more water because we don't want it to be sort of like a dry brush. I guess I am being stingy with this sap green today. There. Maybe that'll do it. Okay, so now I'm going to dip into the darker green, which is the hooker green. And start painting over the sap green. And because the watercolor is translucent, you're going to see through it. And we're going to leave some of it lighter green. And some of it darker. And then I'm going to go over it and kind of make the texture of my brush strokes going up and down, like it's grass, right? And then we can add a little bit of gold. So this is yellow ochre. I'm going to add just a little bit of that up here, and maybe a little down here, just to give it a little bit of variation. Again, I'm not really brush stroking, I'm dabbing at it, just to give it some texture and help the colors blend in. All right, so how do we like how it's looking so far? I think it looks nice. I wish I could be there with you to see yours, but okay, so I'm going to turn this around. We've got our blue, and let's see if I need another piece of, I think I need to get a clean paper towel, paper plate, which is why I gave you two. You'll see I like to reuse paper plates from project to project if they've given me room. Okay, so we're going to use the ultramarine blue. Oh, I'm having trouble getting this one open. There we go. Just wasn't giving it enough oomph. And I'm going to mix white with that as well. Because we want this to be a lighter blue. Definitely don't want it to be the same shade of blue as our sea. And I'm going to go from the white side a little more blue in that. There, I like that better. And we're not going to get too close to the lighthouse right now. Nor the boats. And we don't have to worry about it all being the same color. If you look up in the sky, you'll see variations, right? Your paint will let you know when you need more water. Sorry if you can hear my dogs in the background. They are, as usual, barking at nothing. Mostly at each other. Okay, now I'm going to get my small brush again. And go up by the, close to the lighthouse. And it looks like I got it pretty good around the boat over on this side. And then I'm just feathering that out so it's not just a straight line from my brush. Okay. first strokes were a little darker than what I wanted, so I'm just feathering that out as well. Adding a little more white to my paint. There we go. Okay, now back with the little brush again. Okay, so now all we need to do is just add some white for clouds, right? And again, we just don't want to do just brush strokes. I'm going to kind of dab at it again to get that kind of texture going. That was a little dark in that area, so I'm putting a little more white over that. And I'm not sure where this little blue blotch came from, but you put white. See, my philosophy of you can't mess up with a painting works, right? Do some here. All right, so we're going to turn it around and see what it looks like. Now you might want to let that dry, and you can see if there's other white or darker blue that you want to put up there. But there's your basics on how to use tube watercolors. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to play around with other pieces of paper and just paint. You got a ton of new paints here to try out. We will be using these again for our next lesson. So enjoy your week until our next lesson, and take care of yourselves. Thank you.